Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Okay, I'm here with Eric Christianson, who was on Pharmacy Future Leaders before, and I just stopped in to talk to him. But I wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about PPS. There's always the question: should I do PPS? Shouldn't do PPS? Is it just for PGY2s? Who's it for? And then what happens behind there? So I came back here to talk to him, and hope he can answer some of our questions. So first of all, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are. Just remind us who you are, and then we'll kind of get into some of those.
Yeah, Eric Christianson. I'm a clinical pharmacist. I do some blogging at meded101.com, and I've actually been doing some updates each day. So you can go check that out kind of every day, just things that I thought were valuable or good take-home points. And go ahead and check that out. I'm here with Essential Health, my company I work for. We've got some open positions here in PPS for pharmacists. One highlighted position that we have is we are looking for antimicrobial stewardship pharmacists. So if you've got some experience in that, certainly come on and stop by and check us out, or certainly reach out in other ways too.
Okay, so I've seen a couple of posts. I think Brian Fung was one of the guys who kind of tried to say, is the showcase for PGY1s and this is for PGY2s and jobs. Could you maybe explain PPS versus showcase? Should someone do one, the other, or both?
Yeah, as far as that goes, if you're here, you might as well take in the experience. It doesn't, take long to kind of walk around, talk to people. Depending upon where you're at with everything, there may be aspects of both that might be beneficial for you. So, if you've made the trip down here, my advice is to stop by, walk through. Worst case scenario, there's not too much for you, or you don't feel like you're getting much from talking to a few folks. And but give it a shot anyway, and stop by and check it out.
Okay, so talking to some of the residency directors, they mentioned they have back-to-back half-hour interviews. How does that work with the half-hour interview versus residency showcase, which is more of a, let's see if I can talk to the residency director after I part the masses?
Yeah, exactly. And, I've talked to a lot of students. I don't myself particularly run a residency, but, certainly I've interacted with a lot of students, a lot of young pharmacists that are potentially looking for a residency. The interview process, that's a little bit more of a formalized thing. The more so, like you mentioned, to the residency director, that's maybe a place where you can stop by, say hi, try to be personable, just a nice person, and a good way to get an introduction there quickly. If they're available. Yeah.
If you get through layer 3.
they're busy people. Very busy people, and those residencies are, absolutely competitive. Talking to some residency directors last night, and the number of applications that they're
it's going up
is significant. It's a tough thing for sure.
So tell me a little bit about your experience and how you became clinically trained. You're at the point where you feel very comfortable giving not just advice, but also putting out content there that you're confident is clinically sound, and you are very good about saying, this is what I think, and this is my opinion, but this is why this is my opinion. How did you get to that point? Take us from when you graduated from University of Minnesota Duluth and what you did in terms of residency, fellowship, things like that. And then when did you really feel like, I can be a teacher for this stuff?
Yeah, well, I was a little bit of an anomaly where, I went to a rural area, and doing my rotations in a rural area, and obviously several years ago, I've got to be forthright in that.
Yeah.
The job market was better.
Okay, sure.
With that. So, got into nursing home consulting. And then the company I worked for previously, we dived into some MTM and some other clinical things as well. Honestly, I had the great fortune of working with people who have been clinical pharmacists for 10, 15, 20 plus years.
On your rotate, these are APPEs?
On rotations.
Holy moly,
I had that opportunity.
Okay.
So, it's hard to teach that kind of experience and, what they had seen and just the ability and the access to some of those folks. Because really, long-term care consulting kind of in my mind was, originally kind of the standard bearer for the initiation of clinical services in a lot of ways.
So if you go over to Showcase, like Cleveland Clinic, Duke Medical, UNC actually has like banners as if you're coming to a castle. Like they're just lines of banners. University of Iowa, because in Iowa we have the laws are tremendous for what pharmacists can do. So these take up full city blocks, and then, the people that are there, the masses have come to see the concert. Yeah. And so I think students have gotten good at, targeting, and then they go and then they see the, the celebrities or whatever it is. Yeah. But how would you recommend somebody go and kind of explore a little bit? Because what I did see was a lot of also residencies that didn't really have many people talking to them. And I feel like they were so laser focused on their preconceived notions of what is a good place to be. Sure. But coming from Iowa, and you think, the coast must have the best place to practice pharmacy because they're the East Coast and West Coast. But Iowa is one of the most progressive states. So tell me a little bit about what it is to be in rural practice or rural areas that you got actually better opportunities than maybe you would have at those kinds of places. Yeah,
I mean, there's lots of hidden gems, all across the U.S. for sure. And I would strongly encourage you to talk to different people. If you're somewhat interested in an adventure or going somewhere else or doing something different.
It's just a year, right?
It's just a year. You can do anything for a year.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So, I would say in the landscape of competitiveness of residency, I would say definitely be open and willing to change routes and a plan of attack.
Okay, and how can people reach you? What's the best way? Is it the website? Is it to follow you on Twitter? What are your social accounts?
The best way would be to go through MedEd 101, and I do have a contact me button on there.
Okay.
And that email should go directly to me. I will caution you, I get a few emails now once in a while, so I do the best I can to stay on top of them for sure, but that's the best way. Facebook, you can give that a shot, MedEd 101 on Facebook. I am on Twitter as well. Probably not on there quite as much as I'd like to be, but probably the website, meded101.com would be the best way.
All right, Eric Christianson, thanks so much for being on the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Not a problem. Great to see you in person there.
Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to welcome another special guest. We have Shannon Staton, who is with RX Insider here at ASHP 17. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more about something we had talked about earlier. She was going to have her big launch, and now the launch has happened, and wanted to hear a little bit more about this new product. So, Shannon, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. Could you first just remind us who you are and what you do, and then tell us a little bit more about what you guys at RX Insider have been up to?
Great. Well, thanks, Tony, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the podcast again. I am a pharmacist, and I'm the Director of Education and Professional Development at RX Insider and Core Higher Education Group. So we actually just launched a new product. It's called Core Readiness. It's an online pharmacy-specific learning platform that helps students, professionals, and practitioners to prepare for the future of pharmacy. So in pharmacy school, you learn a lot about the clinical aspects of pharmacy. And we focus more on the the market topics and what you need to use in real life applications in pharmacy.
Okay, so in the MBA programs that are tied to pharmacy schools,
Yep.
they teach really huge topics, big companies and things like that, but really don't talk about the entrepreneurial space, doesn't talk about maybe some of the intricate market things. What does it talk to? Maybe let's divide that into the thirds. So as a student, I would go into the platform, and I signed up earlier today. You can sign up for free, right, to just get into it. What benefit does it have directly to a student?
So for a student, you can learn about all the different practice areas as a new pharmacist that you can get into.
Okay.
So we go over specialty pharmacy and managed care pharmacy and nuclear pharmacy that many pharmacy students don't really know about when they're in school.
Okay.
And learn about the actual settings that you can be practicing in. So we have some company overviews and different practice settings, but also the market topics, so that when you go out on an IPPE or you go out on an APPE, you're better prepared for that setting. Say you're going to a 340B. Let me give you an example,
Okay.
Tony. Go to a 340B pharmacy. If you don't know what 340B is, how are you going to be able to contribute to that pharmacy and to that patient on a deeper level? So we give you a short course on that, so you're better prepared.
So the student might know free drugs or discount drugs, but who's eligible? And then a patient comes to them and says, am I eligible?
Exactly. So it gives you a knowledge of that, so you can actually tell them if they are eligible for the program
sure.
to help that patient get the best care.
Okay, so now let's take it on to the professionals. That seems to be the second bucket, if you were. So I'm a practicing professional. Is it for somebody who owns a pharmacy or somebody who's currently working at a pharmacy?
So this, for professionals, we're actually talking more about business professionals.
Okay.
So marketing people, sales people that are in the field of pharmacy, but they may not know too much about pharmacy.
Right.
So this helps them to be better prepared to have those conversations with directors of pharmacy and pharmacists. So they can really get the most out of those interactions.
Okay, so kind of when I say short course, but when I went into the platform, it looked like they were short courses, but there were a ton of them. Can you tell me about the breadth of how many courses are in there? What's in there?
So there are hundreds of pharmacy-specific courses in the platform. We are consistently adding new content as well to really give our end user the most content. But these courses are high-level, quick overviews, and then if you want to dive in deeper, then you have the tools where you can go out and find that deeper.
Okay, and then there was a third group. So what was the third group that you had besides
So
those?
the third group would be a practitioner,
Okay.
so like a pharmacist. And if they want to change careers, they can start to learn a little bit about that particular area that they want to go into. Or say, 503B, that's a big issue that's come
absolutely.
up. So if they're working in a 503B, if they want to pursue a career in a 503B facility, they can learn a little bit more about that so that they're better prepared on those interviews.
Okay, and you mentioned that some pharmacy schools have adopted it. We don't have to talk about the names of the pharmacy schools, but so that's pretty quick for a launch that happened last summer, right?
Yeah, so we're actually in a period right now where we have, almost 10 pharmacy schools engaging with the platform. We did launch officially at ASHP for the schools, and we've had great feedback so far. Pharmacy schools, they have to pack in so much into their curriculum, and it all needs to be that clinical knowledge. So what's going to come off the plate to teach them about those market topics, about the industry as a whole? They really don't have the time or the space. So that's where we come in and sort of fill that niche.
Okay, so it sounds like if I were to, let's say I'm an APPE preceptor, though, how would I get them involved? I want them to know more about let's say we're in May, they're on their first rotation, they know which rotations they're going to have. How is that group of so many videos set up in such a way that somebody could understand where did they need to go next?
So as a preceptor, you can create a learning path.
Okay.
So that's the focus of the platform. So we have all these short courses, but we consolidate them into themed playlists.
Okay.
So think of a song, and we group as the course.
Okay.
And then the learning path as the playlist. So if you were a APPE site, that student community, but you really wanted your patients to, your students to know more about MTM, you could create a playlist that was focused on different courses like community pharmacy, MTM, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. There's so much going on here.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're in the middle. We are literally in the middle of ASHP 17.
Yeah.
So this makes a lot of sense. So the preceptor has X amount of time to orient them. Then it's back to work. It's always on a Monday.
Right.
So in terms of accessibility, I was able to access it on mobile, but can they listen to it on the way to their sites? Can they listen to it on the way back?
They can.
Okay.
You can watch the videos from mobile, iPad, laptop, everything. It's all accessible from those different platforms.
Okay. So now tell me a little bit about how you as a pharmacist are involved. When we talked on the interview before, you talked about you have a bit of a creative position, which is something that a lot of pharmacists are really wishing that they had, the autonomy and that kind of, this is how working with a team, I guess you could say. So how do you work with a team and what creative outlets do you have with RX Insider?
So, yes, I am a pharmacist, and you need that pharmacist to create that good content for those pharmacy students.
Okay.
So you need to have that to be verified by a pharmacist. But the great thing about my team is that I have content specialists and instructional designers. So they help me, and the team as a whole helps to create really engaging content that is really just great for the end user. So they have specialty areas in content development and video content and how to create these pieces that will really engage students, because we really just don't want to add another thing to their plates. We want it to be interesting and engaging and fun.
Okay. Is there any assessment? Is there any kind of like quizzes and things like that at the end? How do you guys assess what somebody learned from it if they did it? Things like that.
So everything is competency based. That's what that's the era that we are in, is competency based learning. So we start off our courses with learning objectives that are mapped to Bloom's taxonomy. And then at the end, we make sure that those questions are directly related to the content.
Okay. And then I guess, how would what's the best way for somebody to reach this content? I went on my mobile to rxinsider.com, just kind of scrolled down. Is there a website directly for this, or is that the best way to get there?
The website is www.corereadiness.com.
Okay. And
you can create an account right there.
Okay. All right, great. All right. Well, is there anything else that maybe I didn't ask you that you want to let everyone know about either RX Insider or Core Readiness?
Yeah, I think, one of the things we were just talking about was the scalability of reaching, a lot of
patients.
Students. Yeah, a lot
students,
of
patients,
students, reaching. And yes, you can have those seminars, which are great when you go to the meetings and you can reach 50 people. That's fantastic. But the great thing about this product is that it can reach a ton of people. Mm-hmm. It's beyond one singular instance, which we really love, because we really want everyone to be able to have access to this content.
Yeah, I just talked to Hillary Blackburn from Dispensary of Hope, and she said that she did give up that kind of one-on-one patient care that she used to have, but now she affects people nationwide who just are under that poverty line, can't afford their medications. And I think that while it's good that we're trained one-on-one with patient counseling and everything, I think it's nice to know that there are other opportunities for maybe more public health or public education where we can scale. And it sounds like you guys are doing a great job with that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Of course.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.